Yeah. So it's a cool 28 degrees this morning. We got a hard frost again last night. I'm gonna be not home for a part of the day today, so I'm gonna put my chickens out back. I have a run that's protected on all sides, so they're just letting them out in this pen right here. So let's go get them fed. Alright, so I'm going to make some organic chicken stock. I've got a couple of free-range chickens in the freezer that I'm going to use, and I'm going to go pick the rest of my carrots that I have. And I think I got some beets left over there too. I've got a raised bed. It's 12 by 4, and it had some organic compost in it. So we'll see how those did. The growing season up here is pretty short in northern New Hampshire. I'm not sure how well they did, but we'll go see. Alright, let's see what we got for carrots here.
Okay.
You want to see?
Yeah.
You want to pick some? The beets are these red things here.
Ow!
Alright, so it's about 9 o'clock at night. Kids are finally asleep. It's finally time to get back to my chicken stock. I've got a 2.5-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 5-year-old, so things get pretty busy around here. So I've got 2 of my frozen pasture-raised chickens. We did 80 this past year. We process them all by hand. We hand dip them, hand pluck them, and I used a food saver and suck the air out, throw them in the freezer. A word of advice, I would highly recommend not trying to go cheap on the bags. I did buy some non-name brand bags this time, and they did not work well. I would definitely go with the regular Food Saver brand bag. I normally do, and it works fine. So definitely gonna wanna do that. I got a 16-quart stock pot. I get the water boiling and then cook it on low all night long. I'm gonna add some onions, some of the carrots that I picked earlier from the garden, and I have some celery that I'm gonna add too. And if I decide to add some herbs to it, I'm gonna wait and do it in the morning. So then after I get this cooked up, we're gonna can it tomorrow. I like to can it in quarts. I use about a quart a week. So do this every few weeks. Carrots smell so good. Nice and fresh. I'm going to save the tops and feed those to my chickens. And get these rinsed off. I'm going to slice them in half and just throw them in there. I'm going to get that boiling, then I'm going to turn it down to just below a simmer. I don't want the water to evaporate out overnight, but I want it to stay hot enough to not grow any bacteria either, and want it to cook. So I'm going to turn it way down and let that cook until tomorrow morning when we get to canning. Now I'm going to wash up a bunch of my carrots and beets that I picked earlier, get those in the refrigerator, so I just have what I'm going to do with those. So my chicken's cooked for about 12 hours. The pot is still hot. I've got 3 inches of water heated up in my all-American pressure cooker. I'm gonna hot pack these jars. I can fit 7 quarts in the pressure cooker at a time. The first thing I'm gonna do is debone the chickens, scoop out all the vegetables and save those. There's not a whole lot of flavor left in them. It's all in the stock. With the chicken, I'm probably gonna make a pot pie or something with, some gravy on it to give it some flavor. Stock's really going to have a lot of flavor. There's a lot of nutrition in it. Like I said before, these were chickens that we raised outside. They're grass-fed chickens. We had a chicken tractor that we moved around every couple days, give them, some fresh greens to eat and bugs and stuff like that they pick out of the ground. I think the chickens ended up all, including the cost of the chickens, with the food and grain and everything, they ended up costing us about $5 a piece to grow. We do ours at 7 weeks because I found that if I try to do them to 8 weeks, I start losing some. They start gaining weight, too much weight, and they kind of spontaneously die. So I find that 7 weeks works for us. They weigh, I would say they weigh around 8 pounds, maybe 7 or 8 pounds. So I'm gonna leave the fat on top on mine. It doesn't hurt it in the pressure canner, and it's fine when I go to use it. If you wanted to take the fat off, you could either take like a paper towel and just run it across the top and try and soak up some of that grease, or you could chill it. You could put it in the fridge and cool it down, and then just peel the layer of fat and oil off the top. And then you're gonna have to reheat your stock though, because you're gonna want to hot pack this, or you don't have to. But just make sure if you're gonna cold pack it, you start with a cold canner. I think I've got all of the pieces of chicken out of here, pieces of vegetables out. So I'm just gonna set this aside, and then I'm gonna rinse my jars off with some hot water to get them hot so they don't crack when I pack them with the hot liquid. And you always wanna make sure that you use new lids. You don't wanna reuse the lids. I'm gonna reuse the jars and the rings, but the lids, you always want to use new ones. I'm just going to get these warmed up. canning the stock like this is really good for us. You know, there's a lot of nutrition in it, and it's also going to save me some money. To buy organic chicken stock at the store, at my local store, it's almost $5 for a quart of organic chicken stock. So this is really going to save me some money. I use at least a quart a week. I use it to make rice. If I'm going to make gravy, I use it. Soup. Use quite a bit of it. The other thing you're going to want to do is just check your jars and make sure that you don't have any cracks or chips. If you do, they'll break in the canner, which it doesn't disturb any of the other cans that are in there. It's just you'll lose that whole quart of stock from that one. But it shouldn't do any damage to your canner if you do have one that breaks. Okay, so now I'm going to fill these and leave myself a whole inch of head space. The stock is I'm going to take some vinegar and wipe it around the rims of the jars just to make sure that there's good contact with the lid and I get a good seal. The lid's on, the ring's on. Then the next thing I need to do is grease my pressure cooker to make sure that there's a good seal on that. You don't want any air escaping or else it'll never get up to pressure. Olive oil to grease the inside of the top of my canner to make sure it gets that good seal. Just go around the inside lip. You don't need very much. Alright, so you can see I got all my jars in there. I'm going to check my lid. What you're checking is this steam release valve right here. You want to hold it up and make sure you can see, light through, which I can. So line it up. And when you're tightening the top, you want to do opposite sides and just do it finger tight at first. Do opposite sides again. Same thing. Finger tight. You want to make sure that the pressure around the lid is even all the way around. That's the reason for doing it this way. So I'm going to go around and really tighten them all down. You don't want any uneven pressure because you'll get leakage of your steam and the pot won't get up to the correct pressure. Okay, so I'm going to turn this on high. You can see this canner has a gauge as well as I have the weight. I think some canners come with one or the other. This one's nice, it has both. What it's going to do is it's going to get up to 11 pounds of pressure, and I also have the 10-pound weight, so it's more of a auditory signal. You can hear it rattle, where the gauge is, you'd have to keep coming over to check it. So this one just has double. You're going to want to read your instruction manual for whatever canner you buy and make sure you follow those directions. Yours could be different than this one. I'm going to wait until I've got steam coming out of this valve, then I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes, then I can put my 10-pound weight on, wait for the rattle. It has to rattle at least once a minute, but no more than 4 times a minute, so you might have to adjust your heat down. Then I'm going to set my timer for 25 minutes. If at any time during the processing you turn it down too much and you haven't heard the valve shake at least once every minute, you're going to have to start your time over again because it won't be a safe process. So that's just something to be aware of. When you're adjusting your temperature, just do a little bit at a time. So my pressure cooker is getting up to pressure. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's steam coming out of this vent hole right here. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And then once the 10 minutes is up, I'm going to put the 10-pound weight on and wait for it to rattle before I set my next timer for 25 minutes. All right, so this is my weight. You can see it's got 15, 5, and 10. I'm going to put it on the 10 pound and set it on there. Now I got to wait for that to rattle before I can set my timer for the next 25 minutes. All right, so I'm just going to take the good vegetables and meat out and save them in a bowl and then separate my bones out. Alright, so while my broth is cooking, I decided I'm going to make some chicken and biscuits. So I'm going to get my cast iron pan heated up and put some butter in there, get that melted. Alright, so you can hear my pan started rattling. I'm going to turn it down and set my timer for 25 minutes. So my canner's done processing. It rattled for 25 minutes. Then I shut the heat off and let it come down to a pressure of 0. Then I took the 10-pound weight off and you let it sit for 2 minutes before opening the lid. If you let it sit longer than 2 minutes, you could get a suction and not be able to get the lid off. Make sure that you open it away from your face. You don't want to get burnt with any steam. So I'm going to take them out and set them on a towel. You're going to want to leave them for at least 12 hours. You don't want to, bump the cans or anything like that because it could mess up the seal. So put them somewhere where you can leave them and not touch them overnight. All right, then I'm going to fill my rest of my cans with the stock that I have remaining and process that batch, and then I'll be done. Okay, so now I'm going to be making some quick drop biscuits to go on top of my chicken and vegetable and gravy mixture. I've got 2 cups of flour, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of baking powder. Mix that up. Then I've got 2/3 cup of milk and a 1/3 cup of olive oil. I'm just going to pour that in and stir it until it's incorporated. So you can see I ended up with 11 quarts of stock from my 16-quart pot with the chickens in it and the vegetables in it. What a worthwhile way to spend the day, cooking all this good food. Now I've got all those quarts of fresh chicken stock from my free-range chickens, and I've got this wonderful meal to look forward to now. What a great way to spend the day. I hope you enjoyed watching. See you next time.